Today we're going to visit the world of ancient Greece. Ancient Greece was really the start or origin of European civilization. It was the foundation of Western politics, law, art and culture. Ancient Greece and ancient Rome together are sometimes called the classical world or classical civilization. The study of ancient Greece and ancient Rome is called classics. The civilization of ancient Greece was at its height about 400 to 500 years BC. At that time, it was one of the most advanced places on Earth in terms of economics and culture. However, it is not really correct to say that ancient Greece was one country, as we think of a country today. Ancient Greece was actually a large number of small, independent cities. This was thanks to the geography of Greece. The large number of mountains, hills, and valleys divided the country up into small areas. Each of these areas had their own government, and they have been called city-states. The most famous of these is, of course, Athens. The name Athens comes from the Greek goddess Athena, who was the goddess of knowledge and wisdom. However, in spite of this, the people of ancient Greece still all saw themselves as Greek. They had the same language, the same culture, and the same religion. In many respects, society in ancient Greece was very different to society today. In one example, men and women were not equal and were treated very differently. Men could go to the theatre and talk about politics and things like that, but women had to stay at home. Women were not allowed to take part in politics or public life. They just had to stay at home and do the domestic work. Most families also had slaves. These slaves were not given the same rights as a Greek citizen. They couldn't own their own house or land. They just had to be servants in somebody else's house. Slavery was very common, and even a poor Greek family might have a few slaves. It was not just the Greeks that did this, however. Slavery was normal in the ancient world. It happened in ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, and ancient Rome. In spite of this, there are also many positive things about ancient Greece, things which have had an enormous impact on history. One thing ancient Greece is famous for was its intellectual life. Ancient Greek philosophers like Aristotle, Plato, and Socrates used reason and logic to try and understand the world. The Greeks are also famous for their science, particularly in mathematics and astronomy. Their understanding in these areas was very advanced and sophisticated for their time. Their discoveries have had a large impact on modern philosophy and modern science. Ancient Greek culture is also very well known. Probably the most important works of literature to come out of ancient Greece are the works of Homer. He wrote two epic poems known as the Iliad and the Odyssey. They are generally seen as the first great works in the history of Western literature. We will talk about them in more detail in another video. The ancient Greeks also invented theatre and drama as we know it today. Religion was another important part of life here. Like the ancient Egyptians, the Greeks were polytheists. Poly just means many or a lot, and theist means believing in a god. So polytheists believe in many different gods, and monotheists believe in only one god. A lot of the stories and mythology of ancient Greece are to do with these different gods. Greek architecture is also very famous. Because Greek religion was very important, the largest and most beautiful buildings are religious buildings, such as temples to different gods. The Greek style or classical style of architecture became the standard for great buildings in Europe, and it still is today. Many of the most famous buildings in Europe and America are built in this style, including the White House. Another legacy from ancient Greece is the sport. The Greeks invented sports competitions to honour the gods. The most famous of these was held every 4 years in a place called Olympia. It is from this that we get the Olympics. From politics to culture, from architecture to sport, ancient Greece's influence on later European civilization has been extremely important.